So, guys, I want to review AEW All Out in the match card, and I do want to say that before I start, overall, this is just like maybe like a bit of a below average type of show for AEW. I think honestly, I'll give the match card like a C minus, and just like how they've been doing this, building to matches has been a bit of a C minus. Like definitely, there's a lot of plot holes. There's a lot of like rushing to matches, and then there's just a lot of things that are thrown together. I understand that after Forbidden Door, you had a lot of like really great stuff. They had to treat it like a second All In. But this one does feel like they missed a lot of opportunities to do a lot of great stuff. Like there was a talk of MJF and Mark Briscoe having an Inferno match. There was talks about a woman's blood and guts match, but they're not doing that. And then you also have matches like Riho versus Mercedes, and Riho's not been on television for over a year. Why is she now a champion? And then also you have matches like Eddie Kingston coming back and he's feuding with Big Bill, and the big storyline is that they're both from New York. And you also have MJF versus Mark Briscoe, and MJF was in the Hurt Syndicate. They rushed through this to get to Mark Briscoe. Now he's also facing Mystico. So it's just like, there's a lot of just, inconsistencies. And then you have Okada and Takeshita in a tournament, and the winner of that tournament is going to get the Unified Championship. So it's almost like, they didn't really kind of set up, why is Takeshita in this? Why is Don Callis putting two of his members in a tournament when they're all supposed to be on the same team, really? So there's a lot of like plot holes to get to things, and then there's also like a lot of matches that should happen but they're not doing. And then I'd also kind of say that they switched the time really to make sure they're not feuding with sorry guys, moving my foot. That they're also just doing something where they switch the time to make sure that they're not feuding with WWE at all, really. So definitely, I think they could have done way better, but they're not living up to their full potential, really. So I want to review all the matches and talk about them, and we'll take it from there. So the first match that they have is the 8-woman tailgate, and this is also a bad match because would you want to do a women's blood and guts match? Say, hey, you know what? You have CM Punk and AJ Lee, Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins. This is just the nostalgia trip WWE shit. Oh well, we're also going to and their women are TVPG really, so we can do something where we can show that our women are hardcore. We can like learn from the TNA Knockouts division, like Gail Kim versus Kong in a cage, and we can actually, do something to elevate our women. We can have Mercedes and Tony Storm watch the match and pick out opponents for Wrestle Dream. So, wouldn't that kind of be good storytelling? Wouldn't it be good to kind of show what multiple women are like on the women's roster and build something great here? And something a little bit more serious. Instead of doing an 8-woman tailgate where they kind of tease what was going to happen, I think you saw like Harley Cameron whip somebody with a mini cooler. So you just know it's going to be like a lot of fuckery. It's going to be like, the Stadium Stampede at the Jacksonville Jaguar Arena like they did a few years ago where, Cornette calls it football field fuckery. And it's probably going to be, Scotiabank fuckery, with this type of thing, really. So I think that, as I said, it'll be a good visual. I always like the hardcore, fucking around type of matches, the fuckery matches, but still, it's almost like you could have done a better story if you had a women's blood and guts. You could have challenged yourself a lot more by doing that type of match instead of this thing, So, and this won't draw money, the women's blood and guts, really. So I feel it's a missed opportunity. I think the babyface team is going to win, whatever team Holly Cameron's on, so just to get the crowd happy and excited. So that's my prediction. The next match, Christian versus Edge versus FTR. Christian and Edge are going to win this one. This is the hometown. This is like their hometown. It's going to make people happy. They want to have some good momentum through the show, really, so it doesn't make sense for FTR to win. Then it's almost like, what do you do with Edge and Christian if they lose, really? So I really think that they're going to win. They're going to talk about going after the tag team titles and just kind of like doing something with that, like try to get to an outcome where they're tag team champions to kind of like, just to kind of give them like a last hurrah, really, when I don't think that it's needed and right for them, really, So I do think that the veterans are going to beat, FTR, really. The next match is the Hurt Syndicate versus Ricochet, Ochiai, and the Gates of Agony. I'm going to start calling Ricochet Ochiai. Hurt Syndicate's obviously going to win. There's backstage politics. If you do Wrestle Dream, the Ops versus the Hurt Syndicate, you can have Bobby Lashley versus Powerhouse Hobbs. That's a dream match for Wembley Stadium next year. Powerhouse Hobbs versus Bobby Lashley. So I would think that they were smart. They would have the Hurt Syndicate win this one. And obviously, too, they hurt people. Bobby Lashley, Squashworth Strickland. Bobby Lashley has been booked as a powerhouse wrestler. Like, if he was a singles wrestler, he would be undefeated in AEW and all that other stuff, really. So it makes no sense for... It's going to do a lot more damage to make Ricochet and his people win, even though they should be winning. And they can be a really great heel team. And they can kind of be doing some really great stuff, really. So I really just hope that they have strong booking with them afterwards. They can do a lot for the trios division, both these teams. So hopefully, even by Hurt Syndicate winning, you don't, you don't bury Ricochet and Gates of Agony because there's something with them. You have Brody King and Bandito versus three teams in a ladder match. So, I really want to see this. I like these really crazy, off the fucking wall type of matches. Bandito has been like the MVP of the year, really. He's done a lot of really great shit. He's been holding down Ring of Honor, and he's also been holding down the tag team titles, really. So I really think he's done a lot, really. And as a Mexican wrestler, and he's speaking in Spanish, and he's a huge draw for like the Mexico arena crowd. If they go back there for a Forbidden Door and other pay-per-view, they're gonna probably sell it out, really. I really, really think that he's my guy, really. So I really want to see this match. But I know that they're going to win because I think with the other teams, there's really nothing that you can kind of do with them. You could have Jack Perry come back and have the Young Bucks win. But again, it's almost like, as I said, we've kind of gone to the Young Bucks a lot, really. So ultimately, you're going to piss off more people if you have them win. There's stories you can do with them as the champions. Like, they lost a lot of respect. People are laughing at them. And you can kind of like say, okay, maybe you can do a hair versus hair match, have the Young Bucks shave their heads, or you can do something like they feud with Bandito, and then be like, okay, we got the titles, we got the respect that we wanted, and we're gonna hold this forever, really, But I don't think that that's what they should do. They kind of run their courses a little bit. I think Bandito should win, and whoever does like maybe like the second best job should face them at Wrestle Dream. The next match is Jon Moxley versus Darby Allin in a coffin match. And my prediction is Jon Moxley for a couple of reasons. Because Daniel Garcia can cost Darby Allin. And then also you can do Darby Allin versus Daniel Garcia. Get some shelf life out of that, really. There's also something where you can do Eddie Kingston and Darby Allin versus MJ versus Moxley and Daniel Garcia, or you can set up a blood and guts match between these two guys, like a team Eddie Kingston and Darby Allin with three other people, like Daddy Magic and two other people versus the Death Riders. You can set up something like that, really, but I don't think that they should do this. They've been doing a lot of hardcore shit with Jon Moxley. We're in repeat mode. But I think that it's going to be a hardcore match. You're going to see a lot of crazy off-the-wall shit. It's going to be bloody and violent. But I think that Jon Moxley has to win. It's also going to subvert expectations because a lot of people would predict Darby Allin, but you would have to have some matches where you subvert expectations. The next match is MJF versus Mark Briscoe in a TNT match, which is tables and tacks. I really want to see this. This is kind of off the wall. This is going to be a lot of really crazy shit. So I would kind of say that there's a couple of things. I really don't know who's going to win this match, but I think it makes a lot of sense for Mark Briscoe to win because MJF has done a lot for the company. If he loses this match, it's not going to do anything bad for him. If Mark Briscoe loses, it's almost like, he gets over, he can talk in the microphone, he can spit that hot fire. You can set up a TNT match, Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe at Wrestle Dream. And I think that would be a good one. So having Mark Briscoe win here and there right here would be the best thing. You can do something where MJF fucks him over at Wrestle Dream, and then you have a blow off match at Full Gear. Like a I Quit match for the championship, for the contract, and then Mark Briscoe, whoever cashes it in at the at World's End or whatever. Really, that could be the way to go with this. But the thing about it is that it's going to be a match that I really want to see. I predict Mark Briscoe to win because I think a lot of people would predict MJF to win this. But Mark Briscoe's at the point really where it's almost like, what do you do with him? Do you treat him like a powerhouse Hobbs or the Don Callis family or a couple other people on the roster where they have that potential, Ricky Starks, where they have that, like, they can go to the next level, they need certain matches to win? Or are you going to do something like keep them in, that type of, okay, you can't win the bigger matches, and we can't kind of like take your momentum to the next level. For example, when they did Kyle Fletcher versus Will Ospreay in the cage match earlier this year, Kyle Fletcher should have won because it would have shocked people, would have surprised people, and it would have led to something where it would elevate his momentum because Ospreay was already really over. So I think that Mark Briscoe needs to win this match. He should win this match. It will help him out a lot. It would not hurt MJF, and I think that's the right booking, and they're going to do that. The next match is Tony Storm versus Jamie Hayter, Statlander, and Tekla. So this is a fatal four-way match. Again, they have to be really careful because they have the ladder match, the tailgate match, the coffin match, the table and tack match. So you already have, if I'm correct, you have 4 matches on this card that you have 5 matches on this card with hardcore stipulations. Fatal 4-ways mean you can break the rules. So that's a lot for a show. And I think there's 11 matches. So 6 of the matches are hardcore stipulation. So that's a little too much, This is almost like Lethal Lockdown in TNA Wrestling where every match is steel cage. It's a little repetitive. But I really, really think I'm gonna take a risk. I'm going to put it on Statlander because for a couple of reasons. Because Tony Storm has been a champion for a very long time. If she loses the title, it will piss off people. But you can always have a rematch between Statlander and Tony Storm. And then at Wrestle Dream, if it really is just, not doing well, really. Because you always get rematches after stuff happens. But the other thing, too, is that there's really nothing more you can do with Tony Storm. She's becoming Flanderized. So it's almost like, what do you do with Tony Storm if she's always winning? She defeated the undefeatable Mercedes Moné, the 9 belts Moné. She's also been champion, I think, for almost not a year, but they may do something where they may have her be champion all the way through Grand Slam Australia next year, and that's going to be a show where they or it's in her home country. I think she's from New Zealand or Australia, but in the Oceania area. So you will run into a situation, I feel, where if you keep the title on her, you're going to run into people like Okada, Athena, Mercedes, and also Tony Storm, where it's almost like, you have way too many year-long champions, so you need to kind of do other different stuff, really. I think that it's time to just do a switch, and I think that they're going to be smart enough to say, we're going to do Statlander joining the Death Riders, bring that title over, it'll piss off people, it'll create some heel heat on the Death Riders because they're doing an epilogue with this. And I think they're going to do a couple of big matches with the Death Riders, even though I think that they need to get to a point of ending it. I really, really think, and my prediction is ultimately, I think they're going to do a blood and guts match and get a lot of people involved and just do it sometime in October or whatever, when I don't think that they should not be doing that. But I think they're going to do that. Yeah, there's just some fucker out there being noisy. The next match is Hangman versus Kyle Fletcher. I'm happy for Kyle Fletcher because he needs bigger and badder matches. He's at the point where he needs to be main eventing a pay-per-view. What can you do with Kyle Fletcher, really? Learn your lesson from Ricky Starks. Learn your lesson from Wardlow. Learn your lesson from Powerhouse Hobbs. Learn your lesson from a lot of people on the roster. When do you build your own new stars? Because I think they've had MJF, and that's about it, really. I don't think there's never been any homegrown AEW star. I would argue Hangman Adam Page, even though he's done matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I don't count Ospreay because Ospreay's a New Japan Pro Wrestling person, but they don't really have a lot of their own wrestlers who've done a lot in this company who are associated by. It's almost like you don't know who they were before they joined this company, really. With Hangman, a lot of people didn't know who he was until he joined AEW. And that's true for Kyle Fletcher, really. So it's homegrown talent, really. And MJF is the biggest one they got, really. So can you do something where you say to yourself, Kyle Fletcher will have a great match. He's not going to win this match. It makes no sense for him to win this match. It would be bad if he wins this match. And can we do something where he looks strong and he takes it seriously, really? And this is a good match to have because you have to build new talent. And I said the best way to counter WWE is long-term investment. Build new stars, really. This is what I want to see. And I think my argument is, can Kyle Fletcher be serious? If people are going to say, Kyle, you bastard, or when he had the Kyle O'Reilly match, it's Kyle, is Kyle Fletcher going to be flexing and joking with the audience? Or is he going to be serious? Is he going to fuck around and be funny and do some gyrating spots like MJF? Or is he going to be like, you know what? I'm a member of the Don Callis family. I need to win. The pressure's on me. And if I fuck this up, it's a lot of problems. Don Callis retaliating. It's going to be Takeshita looking down at him. It's going to be Okada looking down at him. It's going to be, a shitstorm. It's going to be an opportunity for him not to win, really. What's he going to do? He's going to be desperate. What is he going to do? What story is he going to tell in the ring against Hangman Adam Page? Is he going to like fuck around and flex and not take it seriously, really? Like, this is ultimately the biggest match of his career because this determines, again, if he wants to join NXT or he wants to join the WWE, is he going to be like MJF and just not do and pick comedy at certain points, or is he going to do something like be like, oh, I'm going to play my role, I'm going to do a hell of a job, and it's going to be a long match, and it's going to be an endurance test? What are they going to do with this? So I'm 100% Hangman's going to win, but I'm happy to see Kyle Fletcher in this. The next match that I have is the Unified Championship. There's a tournament that doesn't make sense. You have Okada and Takeshita, and tonight you're going to determine Dorada or Mortos. And I think Mortos is going to win, even though I think Masker Dorada is going to have a better match. Mortos is going to probably win because, he rides that Mercedes. But also, they can do something with Okada and Mortos beating down Takeshita because LFI, some of their members were in the Don Callis family. So I think Mortos and Okada are going to beat down Takeshita. Takeshita's going to go to Japan. He's going to be the IWGP champion for a while, and they're going to just put him on the back burner when he's one of these stars who should be in AEW doing great shit, really. I think what you should do is that you should have Okada win, and then you have, Mortos or Dorada take the pinfall, and then you set up Okada versus Takeshita at Wrestle Dream for, one of his titles, really. And then the winner of that match faces, Hangman at Full Gear, or you do something where Okada gets the pinfall, and then he goes to Wrestle Dream against Hangman. And then what you do is that you set up Takeshita versus Okada at Full Gear, because you can because Takeshita can rub it in his face, and then they feud with each other. Then you have a match of Full Gear. So there you go. Because I think Okada's at the point where he's holding 3 titles. He's held the Continental Championship for over a year. Wouldn't it make fucking sense for him to be in the championship picture? Okada versus Hangman. Okada has not been in a lot of matches. He's wrestled random people, but there's a lot of dream matches you can do with Okada, really. And he's supposed to be this Ric Flair of Japanese wrestling, really. So Okada versus Hangman, it's an Antonio Inoki tribute show. It makes the most sense to do Okada versus Hangman. So I think that, he should win this. But if I'm going to bet money, I would say Okada is going to win this number one. I'm interested to see how they get to that point, really. Are they going to beat down Takeshita, or is it going to be one of them pinning Mortos or Dorada, and then just setting up, Hangman versus Okada at Wrestle Dream, which should be the match to main event, and then you do Okada Takeshita at Full Gear, because that's a big money match. The last match of the night is Big Bill versus Eddie Kingston. Stupid feud. One of the stupidest feuds I've ever seen. Big Bill's kind of jealous that Eddie Kingston keeps getting talked about and by the audience. And, that's kind of like a stupid reason to have a fucking feud. That just makes no sense, really. It's almost like if people keep responding if it's almost like if you guys had comments on my video and say, hey, JD from New York, because I used to live in New York City, but if you guys said JD from New York is better, and then I decided to have a match with JD from New York, it's kind of a stupid reason to have a match, really. JD from New York, if we got into a fight, he would be able to whoop my ass, really. My dad didn't teach me to fight, so I'm kind of like Urkel, really, so if he and I ever had a fight, he would whoop my ass, and you can't teach that, really. The other part of it, so that's just a funny hypothetical, but the other part of it is it's a stupid feud. Eddie Kingston needs to win. He's coming back after an injury. Eddie Kingston versus Jon Moxley, they're friends. There's money in that. There's a lot of money within that. Or you do Eddie Kingston and Moxley fight with each other. Then you can do Eddie Kingston turning heel and joining the Moxley faction. There's a lot of things you can do with Eddie Kingston, really, but you have to bring him back bigger and stronger. Big Cass losing isn't that bad of Big Cass is booked poorly. There's a lot of things that they can do with Big Cass to kind of like get his momentum back. But it's also one of those things too where he should be going to TNA Wrestling or back to WWE, because he's kind of lost in the shuffle, really. It's like he has the potential. You can do a lot of shit with him, but he's poorly booked, really. And he can't just be a jobber, really, because he's 7 feet tall. You can't teach that. If he had good, he could be like a Kevin Nash for AEW if he was booked correctly, really. But overall, those are all the matches. And I would honestly say, like I said before, and I'll say it again, I think just reviewing it again, I would say that yeah, I would agree. It's definitely a C-. I think a lot of the matches are good. They're entertaining. It's passable to me, but it's a bit of a minus because the storytelling can be a lot better. They pushed out by not having a Inferno match because they were talking about that. They also pushed out by not having a women's blood and guts match, which they should be doing. You have the tailgate comedy match instead of a women's blood and guts match, which would have elevated and make you take all the women a lot more seriously. They rushed through a lot of feuds and other things like that. Like MJF is a rush job. Okada Takeshita is a rush job. Big Bill and Eddie Kingston is a rush job. Mercedes and Rio is a rush job. And then also you can even argue that I think it was going to be Hangman versus Wardlow, but Wardlow got injured, because that would have been the better story. That would have been a good way to bring Wardlow back, really, because he's like undefeated. He's done multiple power bombs on MJF, really. So it's almost like, I think they were going to do Wardlow versus Hangman, but then Wardlow got injured. But like I said, I'm happy to go to Toronto. This is what I'm doing for my trip, and we'll see what happens, really.